Hey, and thanks for joining me on another episode of Straight Jacket White Rabbit. I'll be your host. My name's Adam. Today we're going to be talking about the World Trade Center 9/11 attacks. For those of you who haven't seen it, you should watch my 9/11 Pentagon video. Kind of sums up my feelings on this whole day, the 9/11. So, for the World Trade Center part of 9/11, guys, this is a very touchy subject, and I'm going to try to do this as calm and composured as I can, because my original video on this, when I very first started my channel, actually was banned and taken down. I don't believe, and these are my opinions, I do not believe the official story for 9/11, you guys. I do not believe that two people trained at a ridiculously small airport in a ridiculously small plane that was completely different operating systems crashed these planes into the buildings, into the Pentagon. I do not believe that our government had absolutely no knowledge of this and was either responsible fully or partially for that day. Talking specifically about the World Trade Centers, the reason I believe this about flight, I believe it was flight 175? It was flight 175 and flight 11, I think. I apologize if I'm wrong. But the two planes that hit the World Trade Center, you guys, I think it was the first one that was flown into somewhere in the 90th floors. I believe it was the 93rd through the 98th or something floor, something like that. And they're saying that was what caused the pancake collapse, the planes hitting the buildings. And I know people who were in New York, one of which actually saw one of the planes hit. I believe it was the second one. So I'm not discrediting the planes hitting, you guys. I'm simply stating that I do not believe that is what caused the structural collapse that we saw and the amount of damage that we saw. I'm doubting whether the people that we were told were in charge of these aircraft at the time were. I'm doubting the amount of damage done by this pancake collapse was not a product of either explosion or massively large focused energy weapon. Building 7 is another topic that I want to kind of get into, which was the building that housed all the three-letter agencies, FBI, CIA, all them. That supposedly fell from structural damage and fire, mostly fire damage. That was the original report, as a matter of fact, was that they fell from fire damage alone. Then they changed it to fire damage, and because originally when the World Trade Center fell, some of the debris went through and damaged the center beam support structure of Building 7. I don't believe that, you guys, because I've never once seen in any of the hundreds of videos that people have posted about this, I've never seen the outside structural damage to that building pre-fire. Like, the World Trade Center didn't collapse and then send some huge piece of the building hurtling through Building 7 so that it hit this center support beam that supposedly helped keep the entire building from falling. And then the fire finished the job. I never saw that kind of damage. Yes, it had small damage to the outside of the building, but the first major piece of damage I saw to that building was after the fire had burnt out a lot of the inside. And then within a few minutes I believe it was after the roof opening from the fire, we had the actual structural collapse, which once again, like the World Trade Center buildings, was a pancake collapse, man. It looked like when you used to see like them take out the old stadiums or the old casinos in Vegas, man, and it was just boom, 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 perfectly even all the way down, and then the cloud, the dust and debris. I've looked up videos, you guys, of building collapses from all different stuff, earthquakes, fires, floods, explosions. None of them look like a controlled demolition. They just don't. The fire collapse looks like a fire collapse. Parts of the walls are still standing up all tall while the other parts are all, falling this way or down. They're not just even flat. I've never seen a video of that. If you have, please send it to me by all means and correct me, because I've looked all over. I've never seen a structural collapse that looked that much like a controlled demolition. It's what it looks like, guys. Now you get onto the subject of, why do I believe it was a controlled demolition other than the pancake collapse? I believe these buildings were controlled demolition because there was a pancake collapse, yes, but there was also an enormous amount of, I'm going to say speed, I guess, a hurry, a rush to get rid of the evidence. This is the biggest crime that's ever happened to our country in modern times. I mean, it really is. The biggest attack on our country since forever long ago. And we were throwing things away, scooping things up, and hauling truckloads and truckloads and truckloads of debris away from this with potential evidence in it within 24 hours. Before 24 hours was up, they were bragging that they had gotten X amount of dump trucks worth of material out of the crash site. This is, number one, screw getting the trash out of there. Let's move the trash out of the way, find the people. I don't care about taking the trash somewhere else for right away. But everyone says, well, why are them removing that stuff right away a big deal? People didn't want to have to look at that forever, and it took long enough to clean up, and all these other excuses. You guys, do you know how long it would have taken to have an independent lab or somebody do, tests for thermite or other explosive materials from the dust or the beams or any of the other debris that was carted off? They didn't just cart this stuff off, guys. They carted it off. They gave it away. They turned it into ships. They sold it to foreign countries. They did anything they could to get rid of this evidence as fast as they could so that nobody would bat an eye or test for things other than the official story. And these are my opinions on this. We believed everything we were told, but there's problems with the story. If it was just, that's the way gravity works, and whenever the structure of the building got damaged that high up, it caused that pancake collapse, why'd it stop at the basement? Was there, like some people claim, a loud explosion or bang sound coming from the room right above the basement? Was there an explosion somewhere on the first few floors of that building that we didn't hear about? I don't know. But a lot of people questioned why the basement level was left intact. Look up the pictures. They have pictures that they took right after they got it cleared. People walked into the basement section and took photos. It looks almost immaculate, guys. There was no damage. That just doesn't stand up to my kind of reasoning. Then you have, and like I said, I'm sure people aren't all going to agree with me, and you don't have to. That's fine. These are all my opinions, guys. But then you have things like the 1,400 plus cars and things that were just completely fried. And people said, oh yeah, man, there was, jet fuel and all this other. Guys, people were, they say it was all mixed in the ash, and the ash was burning with the jet fuel in it and all this other stuff. People were covered in dust, you guys. This was the financial district in New York. This is literally the financial district. There are thousands of people down there at any given point in time. You saw the videos of the people bolting through the streets, covered head to toe in the ash. They weren't burnt. Their clothes didn't get set on fire. But the cars that got burnt up, oddly enough, mostly along straight lines in certain directions on certain streets. Why those cars? Why did they only just get lit up like a matchstick or a fuse in a line? Some people believe that it was just the way that the fuel fell, I guess, from these planes. I don't buy that. I've been told that if there was some kind of explosive used that was like some kind of thermite, if it was used, that it could remain hot enough that when it landed on these vehicles, it set them up. But like I said, there's a precision problem. This is car after car after car, and this wasn't like their windows are open and the interior caught fire and it burnt out their car. And most of these guys, the outer part of the cars were burnt to a crisp, enough to where the metal was just bending and warping. That doesn't sound right to me. And then I heard a theory from a TV show. I don't even remember what year it came out. I think it was after 2011. Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory, guys. And he had a theory on there about a directed energy weapon being used, or possibly multiple. And I'm looking at the lines of cars down these streets that are, lit up. And a lot of people don't realize we have directed energy weapons, guys. Our three-letter agencies have had guns that can cause. They've got devices that can cause heart attacks. They've got all kinds of directed energy weapons on large and small scale. Even it's starting that technology is so outdated, I guess, which is kind of funny because it's a new technology, but it's so outdated to our government that they're letting the military come up with directed energy weapons that the public has knowledge of. So it's not like it's going to be a hidden technology for much longer, but I do believe that is a possibility, one of many, of what the real story is. The pilots of these two flights, you guys, the two terrorists that supposedly flew these planes, there's just no way I believe that these guys went to some rudimentary backwoods little flight school, and I'm sorry to insult the flight school, and learned how to fly a little prop plane, a single engine prop plane, and then jumped into a 747 I'm sorry, that's like saying I know how to drive a car and then flying the NASA space shuttle. It's not the same thing. If you've ever looked at the control panel for a single engine like Cessna plane, which I have, it's fairly not that complicated. There's not even that many buttons on it, really. There's a couple levers, there's a steering, you know what I mean, the flight controls. There's not that much there. You go into like a 747, 757, one of these jumbo jets, and look in the cockpit, and it looks like something that like Bill Nye the Science Guy would love. There's buttons and switches and lights everywhere in these cockpits. There's all kinds of instrumentation on these things that these smaller planes don't have, wouldn't use, had no need for. So you're telling me these guys with no experience in the big planes just hijacked these things, flew them perfectly, hit their targets? I don't believe that. And my reasoning for not believing that is, once again, the government's fault. No transparency, guys. We were told that at the World Trade Center crash sites, 0 black boxes were recovered. Well, there's people who worked night and day on those cleanup crews that have come out and said otherwise. More than one. A few people have come out and said that they heard and saw FBI agents with those black boxes. Both of those boxes, according to these people, were recovered. So why lie to us and say they were recovered? And I've had people say, well, maybe they just were recovered, but they were too damaged. Well, that's what they tried to feed us about the other black boxes that day at the other sites. Oh, well, yeah, they were recovered, but they were too damaged. Or, oh, they were so messed up, the audio didn't record. You guys, first of all, these things are made to be indestructible practically. I mean, I can't tell you how many crashes these things have survived in the past, and then all of a sudden you're telling me this day that there's just the bad day for black boxes. You know, 2 of them get smashed to bits to the point where they can't be used or recovered or whatever you want to call it, and then 2 of them just went missing. And how are you going to say they went missing? Their official spokesperson came out and told us that they were going through that debris with such a fine-tooth comb that they were finding fingernail-sized fragments of DNA so that they could test it to find out the victims that occurred that day. You're going through there finding fingernail-sized fragments of bones and identifying them through DNA, but you can't find boxes that are practically indestructible that are this freaking big? I don't believe you. I believe a lot of people don't believe it. That's why there are so many people who protest still to this day or hold signs still to this day at the 9/11 memorial site. Just as on my Pentagon video where I explained how they only released like 4 seconds of footage that were like 12 frames that were absolutely nothing but basically a fireball. They don't release the truth to us, guys. There's something about this they didn't want us to know, probably because it was being covered up. And more than likely, unfortunately, in my opinion, it was because our government was involved. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to speculate on why our government would do that. There's lots of reasons, guys. Our government does shady stuff all of the time. But it is my belief that they were involved in this. It is my absolute belief that there was not just planes that caused the collapse of the World Trade Centers, guys. We either had explosives in those buildings, like a controlled demolition, or we used a directed energy or high energy weapon of some sort to demolish the building. But there was some other force working at play here, and there's not a physicist in the world that's going to convince me otherwise. There's not a news spokesman or a politician in the world that's going to convince me that these events happened the way they say they happened. Okay? It just doesn't add up. And there are people, like I said, there are alternating points in this story, you guys. There are people who said that they claimed that they heard some kind of loud explosion or bang coming from the lower floors of the World Trade Center as well. Why were these people not talked to or written down or kept on the official registration for the 9/11 Commission? They weren't asked to testify, and if they were, their testimonies never made it to the official record. These are people who are these are verifiable people. They worked in the building. They just got out first. You got to understand, the people in the lower parts of the building, a lot of them got out. They heard the explosions and they went running. So there are accounts of people in that group of people who said that they heard an explosion or a boom, and then heard a plane hit up at the top of the building, the actual plane hitting the building. Now, moving away from Building 7 real quick, because I was talking about that earlier, and strictly talking about the World Trade Centers, you guys. It is a really sad thing, regardless of who actually did this crime. There were a lot of people lost on that day. And the one good thing is that can come from it, or did come from it, I should say, was our country seemed united. You know, something threatens us and we all stand up together usually. And it did unite our country in a way for like almost 2 years, man. You couldn't drive anywhere without seeing an American flag, or, you know, people telling us to fight back, or all kinds of stuff all over social media. And, you know, the actual situation, the actual event was horrible. It was god awful. Don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not glad it happened. But if anything, I think it did bring a lot of us together from our divisive daily routine. And I don't think that was an intended consequence by our government or whoever perpetrated this event, guys. I think that was our nature kicking in as both U.S. citizens and as patriots and as people who, we're not going to stand up. We're not going to, I'm sorry, not stand up. We're not going to sit down and take things, sitting down and lying down. We're not going to get bullied. And when somebody messes with us as a country, boy, we pull together real quick to get some revenge and retaliation. And if these terrorists were responsible, we did just that. We got a lot of revenge. I'm just not entirely convinced we got it on the right people. Those of you, like I said, who've seen my Pentagon video, know about the announcement by Donald Rumsfeld the day before 9/11 about all the untracked money. I believe that was a financial matter that was taken care of that day. I believe that there was more than one reason why these plane attacks hit. I'm not saying all of them are tied to one reason, and I don't believe they were. I believe they were done for multiple reasons. I believe the Pentagon was hit because of that lost money, which is why the exact area where the Pentagon was hit was the accounting and finance department. They can give you a lot of facts and a lot of, oh no, it was a plane, but can they tell you why the terrorists happened to hit the accounting and finance department? It's because they were hiding stuff. And they were about to get busted for it, and they knew it. And they figured, well, we're already doing this, so what's one more building or part of a building? And once again, these are my opinions. I believe the benefits that the people behind the shadows, behind the curtain got from this, I honestly believe it was a war. I believe it was a reason to go to war. And you guys have to remember, unfortunately, we live on a planet where war is the biggest business there is. It's bigger than oil. It's bigger than anything. It's bigger than energy. War is the end-all, be-all of finances because there's so many things attached to it that people make money off of. These higher-ups, these elites in our country and other countries all make power off of this. I can't remember who said it, but it was a long time ago. If you sent the elites to fight all the battles and fight all the wars, there'd be no more wars declared. But we don't do that. The people who make the most money from these, they're never going to see a war field. Their children will probably never see war. I know I strayed off topic for a minute just because I'm kind of a patriot. I'm very patriotic. I love my country, you guys. I absolutely cannot stand and do not trust our government whatsoever, but I love my country, okay? And I believe that we have the capacity to be a shining star as far as other countries are concerned. I don't believe we live up to that as much as we could, and I believe it's because of the government and I'll just call them the elites, the rich, the powerful, that we don't do that in this country as much as we should. So yeah, my whole thoughts on the 9/11 attacks for the World Trade Center is that there was another type of explosion. There just had to have been. Those were two pancake collapses. You're telling me both of those buildings fell pretty much dead even straight down. They've done videos where they've actually monitored the sidewalls to see where they shift or how much they moved. And these things, it was a perfect pancake collapse all the way down. You're telling me 3 buildings did that and there was no single detonation or outside force factor other than those planes and some fire? I'm sorry, I can't wrap my head around it. I don't believe it. It's almost so far-fetched, it's funny. I'm sorry, but like I said, watched fire damage building videos. I've seen explosion to buildings. I've seen explosion to buildings that have exploded. I've seen lots of different stuff, guys. I've done my research. I've looked into this. Something's off with the way these came down, and I think people had a point to bring it up. They look like a demolitioned building. They look like something that was intentionally blown up and brought down safely so that it didn't kill, every other building around it. Those buildings had the kinetic force of a friggin' freight train. I mean, like, you have to imagine how much weight that is coming down, 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 down. If they would have gotten hit and fallen any other way, they could have taken out blocks of buildings. I mean, just leveled other buildings on their way down. But they came down exactly like you've seen on TV hundreds of times when other buildings have been purposefully demolished. There's been other attacks on it before, you guys, and I'm not denying that. Terrorists have tried to attack the World Trade Center before this a couple of times. There have been plots foiled against them targeting that building. And I'm not saying that those had anything to do with our government. I think those were a convenient reason for our government to pick that building. Well, look, terrorists have already tried to take it down a couple of times and we managed to stop them. So who's to say they didn't try again and they succeeded? I know how these corrupted a-holes think. And I know how that mind frame of chess over checkers, I'm going to call it, that strategic way of thinking goes. And I don't doubt for one moment that our government would do this. And like I said, I do consider myself a patriot, but I believe in our country, not our government. There is a difference. The country includes the people. We the people. It's not our government. It's we the people that matter the most here. But these are my thoughts on the subject, you guys. I just kind of wanted to do a light tab into it. I don't want to get super serious because then I get emotional and I get very energized. And that's probably why my last video got taken down by YouTube. So if you have any comments about the World Trade Center specific crashings or Building 7, put it in the comments. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are about this. Let me know what your thoughts are about the Pentagon video. If you haven't watched it, go back, like it, subscribe. If you guys aren't subscription holders already, subscribe to my channel. Remember, anything you guys do, like leaving comments, liking my videos, or subscriptions, helps me bump up my algorithms on YouTube. So it's much appreciated. And I'll be posting another video here shortly. So until next time, once again, my name's Adam, and this has been Straight Jacket White Rabbit. Have a good night, guys.